get our recording started. Yes, Carolyn, that would absolutely be fine. And like I said, for Sarah, we'll have a recording of this webinar posted to the K-12 ELA planning page. It takes about 10 days or so for us to get it recorded and get it posted, or get the recording submitted and get it posted, but we will have that available for you as well. I want to thank you all for joining us, joining me today. I had to reschedule this. It was supposed to happen last week, and unfortunately, I was out with the flu. So we're going to have a part two, do our part two here today. Right. So this is the second part in our learning series, and this one is going to focus on observation for leaders. So we know that you're in your ELA classrooms all the time and you're seeing what's happening in those classrooms. And we want to be sure that we're giving you some guidance and support to ensure that you feel confident as you're going in with the new educator rubric and giving teachers really good feedback and creating those plans, coaching plans, and just having that real cohesive instruction happening at your school. So all of our work that we do here at the department is grounded in our larger department priorities. You can see those here on the slide. And the statewide teaching and learning strategy addresses meeting the needs of all of our students, including our diverse learners, by building the capacity of our leaders to drive impactful practices, effective core instruction, utilizing high quality instructional materials, strategic use of instructional time. We know how valuable that time is. Access to high dosage tutoring that supports students by meeting their individual needs, access to courses and credentials that prepare our students for the real world, and quality and timely job embedded, content focused professional learning. So our objective for this session is by the end of the session, we'll be prepared to conduct strategic observations of ELA lessons based on the ELA Look For's tool. So let's take a look at this tool. I have a link. I'm going to drop it in the chat. And anyone who is in transit right now and can't access the tool that I'm about to share with you, you can always email us at elaguidebooks@la.gov and we'll get that sent to you. Let me drop this in the chat for you there. So for our purposes today, we're going to use the NIET Look For tool for ELA as a common observation tool rooted in research-based qualities of effective instruction for ELA. And this is really going to help us define what we should see and support whenever it comes to ELA instruction. And using the Look For tool, it can be used during walkthroughs or observations to identify evidence of practices associated with strengthening our teachers' content knowledge as they shift to align with the more rigorous standards and curriculum. Use it to provide feedback to teachers as they work to deepen their students' learning, or use it to discuss evidence from walkthroughs, observations, and analysis of student work in pre and post conference sessions and in teacher collaboration as appropriate. But this is really going to be a tool that'll help you kind of make those coaching plans come to life and kind of see, okay, is this happening in the classrooms after you've had your observations and pre and post conference meetings? So why is it so important? Having alignment in our vision for student learning is essential. We must set our student learning as the main priority for decision making across our schools and our school systems. Consider what you're seeing whenever you're doing your walkthroughs and during teacher collaboration. What are your expectations for planning? How would better planning impact student learning? Or maybe you've had some brand new teachers who need some additional support. Maybe you have some veteran teachers who need to shift their practices and their expectations. How do you know if students are learning what they should be learning in the lesson? It's that alignment there. And then how do you know if the instructional moves the teacher is making will leverage the desired results? This is really important, especially if you weren't an ELA teacher. Consider how you'll build your capacity as a leader to be sure that you know when you're going in those classrooms that what's happening is essentially high quality ELA instruction and how you can better support your teachers in having those instructional practices happening in their classroom. So at the end of the day, if that's happening, our students are winning. This aligns directly with the planning expectations that are within the Louisiana Educator rubric. That's going to help you as a leader align on what exceptional planning looks like. The ELA tool we're going to look at today, it's directly connected to the LER. You'll see some of that same language used in both. And it's really not to be, the ELA look for tool. It's not to be used in place of the educator rubric. Instead, this is something to be used to support you as you're supporting your teachers. All right, so we're going to take a moment to normally we would do this in person and we would look at that tool and we would see what do we notice and wonder about it, and we would talk together. We do have, I know there are a couple of y'all that are in transit right now, but we do have some people who are joined or join live. So if you can access the ELA look for tool, go ahead and open it up and just take a couple of minutes to look at the tool. And we're going to talk about what you notice and what you wonder. You can, as you start having those, you can drop it in the chat and we'll just kind of go from there. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to look at the tool. And I'll pull the tool up over on our screen here. What are some things that you notice or you wonder about this tool as you've been looking through it? Yes, Paula, grounded in HQIM, it's grounded in those complex texts and grounded in making connections. What I really love about this tool is we have this little yes, some, not yet. So as we're kind of going, because we may not see the full breadth of this, or we may see some evidence of it. So I like that we can kind of notate those things and then, add our little notes there about it as well. But you'll notice the parts that are in this tool, the context from the descriptors, the look fors, so that those examples of evidence that aligns with the LER and with what that good kind of coaching and follow up support for teachers looks like after they've had their observation. We get back to our right screen. So we're going to start by looking at those descriptors of exemplary practice. So in order to understand how to support our ELA teachers, we need to understand deeply what knowledge, skills, and habits define the goal of an ELA educator in our world today. So the first descriptor, teacher displays extensive content knowledge and understanding of both the state standards and instructional materials, including their curriculum for all the subjects they teach. So we want to see that our ELA teachers, they know their instructional materials, they know their state standards, and they know more than just like what's in this unit, but they really have a deep understanding of the learning that's happening and the expectations for learning that are happening within that unit. As well as like the format, the structure of what that learning looks like. And then the second one, teacher consistently implements a variety of subject-specific instructional strategies to enhance student content knowledge. Let's be very real for a moment. We know that in a lot of our school systems, we have teachers who are brand new to teaching. Some of them have never been in a classroom, and some of them have never taken an education or a teacher training class ever. They're in the process of doing that, but they're in our classrooms teaching our students. Having tools in your toolbox that you can use to help build those teachers' capacity will increase the likelihood that they're going to stay. And I mean, we wanted good teachers for our students. And so why not support the ones who are here, build them up so that way we can have some really dynamic teaching happening, whether that teacher comes from a teacher prep program or they were a UPS employee last week and this week they're in the classroom. And we know that takes time, but using tools to support you in doing that, it's super important. The third descriptor is the teacher consistently highlights key concepts and ideas and uses them as the basis to connect other powerful ideas. So let's break these. Did I go to Sorry, y'all, I'm flying solo today, so I'm manning the screen and doing the talking. So sorry in advance. But let's look at each of these descriptors in a little bit more detail, or kind of break them down a little bit and think of them in terms of questions we need to answer as leaders when we're deciding how to best support our educators. When you think of these questions, think about what areas of need do you feel are most important to address within the ELA department on your campus. So looking at that first descriptor, does the teacher know their content, standards, and curriculum? Very simple. That's the question. Does this teacher know those three things? Does the teacher know the best pedagogical practices to teach their content, standards, and curriculum? We know that this is an area of growth for a lot of teachers, all of us. We should always be wanting to learn and grow and do more and better and just have that dynamic happening, teaching and learning happening in our classrooms. And then the third one, does the teacher know how to make the content, standards, and curriculum relevant to the students and the world? They need to see that, yeah, we might be learning about something that might not be connected to anything here in Louisiana. However, it's important in the context of the greater world. So I wish I could take credit for this little, CPR, but it wasn't me. I will confess it wasn't me. So when we need to breathe life into the learning, we need to use CPR. The goal is for all of our teachers to be masters of their content and the pedagogy that best helps students learn the content. We also need to be sure that they have the ability to reveal to students the bigger picture of why this learning matters in their lives. So we're going to dive into each of these descriptors and discuss how the look for's tool can really help us as leaders, not only in what to look for during our observations, but also in preparing and leading teacher collaboration and analysis of student data. So let's look at this first descriptor again. Teacher displays extensive content knowledge and understanding of both state standards and instructional materials, including their curriculum for all subjects they teach. So first things first, you need to invest in in your teachers. The one thing to note before going any deeper in this look for tool or in this first descriptor is that, like a garden, our educators cannot grow in infertile ground. One essential component is to ensure that they have the foundation in all of their classrooms and that they're ripe for learning. And we can do this by making sure the teachers have all the training they need on what they are teaching and how to best deliver their instruction. Here are just a few examples of resources that can help our teachers through high quality professional learning tools and concepts before we can expect to see that garden grow in our classrooms. So we're going to take a second to look at some of these. So for professional learning, we have our Louisiana content leaders on the ELA webpage. Or on the LDOE webpage. And I'm going to drop this link in the chat so that way y'all have all of these links available. So this is just the content leader page. You have the modules and the resources here for our ELA content leader. And there are some amazing resources. If you've never gone through the content leader training, I highly recommend that you take some time to familiarize yourself with these. If you're a leader who doesn't necessarily have an ELA background and you want to build your knowledge and your ability to be able to really support your educators, this is a wonderful place to go for learning. We also have our professional learning partner guide. Choosing a professional learning partner that is high quality, they're approved to provide professional learning for your curriculum. That's very, very important. It might not be the professional learning partner that you've used in the past. You might really like them. And that's wonderful because that relationship building is so important. But if the professional learning partner is not able to provide professional learning, if they're not approved, if they haven't submitted their content to be able to provide this professional learning for your instructional materials that you're using at your site or in your school system, it's really it's doing a disservice. You're not getting everything that you get that you should get. You want to be sure that the professional learning is provided by people trained to do that, and they've submitted evidence that they are. We also have our standards for ELA. I know the standards review process is kicking off. I'm not going to drop the link to this. We know we see our standards all the time. This tool here, we talked about this in our first session, and then we talked about it with the teachers a couple of days after we had our first session in this learning series. And there was a lot of great reception from the teachers that attended that session a couple of days after you had your session. So I'm going to drop this in here, the unit study protocol and the unit study tool. It was originally developed to be used with ELA guidebooks. However, we went through and pulled out all of the ELA guidebook specific language and made it more generic, more open. So this could really be used with any ELA curriculum. It's going to walk your teachers through truly internalizing the learning for that unit. And then we also have the guide for determining text complexity. So we get questions sometimes about why is this particular text in this grade level? Maybe it was a text that when we were in school, we read it at a different grade level. Why is this in this grade level? But a lot of different factors go into determining what makes a text complex. It's not just those, the number, so the Lexile range or anything like that. It also goes into considering how hard the text is for students to understand. So are they having some complex learning happening with that text? And then also how the text is used in the classroom. That's also a contributing factor. That's a good resource for you to just to have it, and then also for teachers to look at. It's really eye-opening at times. And then our guide for content literacy support on the literacy instruction intervention and extension page on Louisiana Believes, you are going to find some content literacy support resources, and these are resources that can be used with any content area, and it kind of breaks it down. So like annotating a text, what does that look like in different content areas? But these are some wonderful resources that could also support you as you're building your toolbox, but then also as you're supporting your teachers, especially our, UPS teachers who are new to us, new to education, new to teaching. Right. So let's examine the first descriptors look fors. In order to better imagine how these look fors may apply to both observations and teacher collaboration, there's a companion guide tool with the guiding questions in the link that I dropped earlier for you. But I'm going to put this link in the chat for you as well. So you have a direct link to that. So let's look at this companion guide tool. It's a little bigger for us. So it breaks it down by giving you the exemplary descriptor. So displays extensive content knowledge and understands the state standards and instructional materials, including curriculum. So that first category. Here it gives you some examples of evidence that you might see that would show you that the teacher, they are displaying this extensive content knowledge. And then you also have some possible questions that you could pose during teacher collaboration, or as you're maybe having like a follow-up meeting with a teacher. You've developed a plan for this teacher, and you went in to kind of follow up and do a walkthrough, and you wanted to discuss that and just kind of see where they are in their coaching plan. So you have each of the descriptors that are on the ELA tool, the look for tool, and then you have those questions right there for you. So you can refer back to this and really use it as a tool to guide not only when you're in the classroom and what you're seeing, but then also during teacher collaboration, extending it into that space. So now that we've seen the look fors and the questions, we're going to look at some examples of how this descriptor can come to life in teacher collaboration and in the classroom. And here is where I'm going to need a friend to give me a thumbs up or put in the chat yes or no, and to play a video. And I'm going to see, I think that the settings are correct for you to be able to hear the sound, but let me know if you can't hear it.
We're really just at the tip of this iceberg for this expedition. We really just have a little bit of knowledge based on our own family's immigration stories. And as we get into our expedition, we'll get into two really chunky, long-term case studies. Please take a look at today's workshop target. Give me a thumb if you have a specific notice or a wonder based on just today's workshop target. Let's make sure we understand what this is all about. See a lot of thumbs, a lot of things people are noticing, a lot of things people are wondering. Maddie, start us off. What do you see here?
We're gonna use some documents or some like text to notice some notices and wonders about case studies.
Yeah, we'll look at some different texts to create some notices and wonders. What else are you thinking about, Ben? What do you think we're going after here? What questions do you have about today's target?
The question is, what's a immigration case study?
Have that right here. Awesome. Great question, Ben. We'll come back to that in just a bit. Thanks. Andrew, something you're noticing or wondering?
We're gonna, adding on to Maddie's for the source documents, we're just trying to define understanding and research.
Good. So specifically, we're trying to develop a bit of understanding today. It's just some introductory understanding, but probably what's even more important is our developing some research questions that will help shape the rest of our investigation, the rest of this expedition in a way. Chase, what else are you seeing or wondering? Good. Give me a pinky. You can hold that pinky way down low if you're like, I have no idea about primary research documents or resource documents. Maybe up here if you're like, I have some sense of what those may be. And hold that pinky up high if you're like, primary research documents? Man, it's like I've been working with them since I was born. And you know many things about what those are.
Not many, but yeah, not that much.
So I see a real mix within the crew. I'm going to ask you just to take about 10 seconds and as a table group now, share your understanding. What do we mean by primary resource documents?
To be like someone wrote something in the primary
I love it. Where are we right now with understanding of primary resource documents? You might even discuss it, how it's different from secondary, if you're able to speak to that. Kilaway, to start us off.
That like the primary document stuff was like the real stuff, I guess, like real information. And, like
Can you say a little bit more about what you mean by real?
like things that have been like done common and stuff.
So we can sort of say primary are real. Okay. Great. Sienna, something else to add?
Okay, so primary came from that specific person, and like secondary came from somebody else who wasn't actually there to experience it or something. It was just like they know about it. So that's what usually secondary means.
If I went for a run this morning, I'm jogging and I see someone on my run and they're just singing these beautiful songs, right? And I write a newspaper article about it. Would you call that a primary or a secondary? Show me fingers. Primary or a secondary? I was right there. I saw it. I wrote a newspaper article about it. I see some mixed emotions. Okay, great. Let me ask you this question. If I was right there, I saw that person sing these beautiful songs when I was on my run, and then I told Devin about them. And then Devin wrote a letter to someone about it. Is Devin's letter primary or secondary compared to what I was able to say about it? I'm seeing almost unanimous now that Devin is that secondary source. Sienna's getting us right on track, and I think Kilauea is as well. I'm going to ask you just to make a quick note in your expedition journals about this, because we'll come back to this information later. Maybe make a little T-chart, primary, secondary. Both Kilauea and Sienna are right. Primary are, in a way, almost more real. We'll say more about that in a second. Today, we're going to look at some primary source documents. And in fact, many of them are around you right now in the room. Give me a thumb if you could describe what kinds of primary source documents we're going to look at today. Audrey, what kind of primary source documents are we going to look at? We're going to look at photographs, most of them pictures.
All right. So as you can see, that's It's a 5-minute video, 5 minutes and 18 seconds. The teacher is going through their learning target for that day, for going through their objective, but he's taken the time to ensure that students really know what's happening in that learning target. So he's ensuring that they understand the difference between primary and secondary sources. He's also, I would say, I think he knows about his curriculum. I also think he knows about his state's standards. And so he's going into this lesson setting his students up for success. Do all of our learning targets need, or our daily objectives, do they all need a 5-minute deep dive into them? No, but he made sure that his students could read, it was in student friendly language, the objectives. And then he took the time to be sure that they truly knew the difference between a primary and secondary source, because that was going to be really important for the activity that they were doing today and building into their greater learning as they were beginning their research project. So it was time well spent. All right, let's look at the second descriptor. Teacher consistently implements a variety of subject-specific instructional strategies to enhance student content knowledge. So what are some things that you would expect to see in a ELA classroom when we're talking about subject-specific instructional strategies? What are some examples? Drop some in the chat. Students talking about the text, yes, and relating it to something else in the world. Maybe they're connecting the text that they're reading or something that they've done in that class to another text that they've read in that class. Writing strategies. So we're getting our students not only reading these texts, but we're getting them talking about the text, and we're getting them writing their text. And there's some very specific instructional moves might utilize, CER. Absolutely. So now that we've reviewed the look fors and the questions, let's look at some examples of how this descriptor can come to life in a teacher collaboration and in the classroom. Take a look at this annotated lesson plan, and let's see if we can make some connections to what's happening in this lesson. So take a second to look at these annotations. All right. So let's take a look at what this looks like in the classroom.
To understand the text. Yeah, Jalen.
I can answer questions about the passage.
And Maria.
Write a paragraph about it.
And guess what? We're going to do all of those things today. What did Caesar do all day long? You have a peanut butter, and some of you have a jelly. Please talk to your peanut butter and your jelly partner and answer that question. What did Caesar do all day?
Caesar is doing the fire and baking and planting. I agree with you, and I also like to ask Caesar was like Oh, okay. He was like, just keep picking things. I'm gonna stop you for a second. And I'm gonna ask you to take your highlighter because today we're improving our thinking by using the text. So underline the piece that you're gonna talk about with your friend to answer the question, what did he do all day? What does the phrase nearly every crop caused torment? Do you know what torment is? Not in your loud voice. What's torment mean? Torment means like a not like it caused pain and difficulty and it was awful. So what would this phrase mean? Nearly every crop caused torment. Oh, lucky duck for me, please. 20. And I loud voice. I think that phrase means. I think that phrase means that every crop. Loud voice, please. Every crop. Ask your peanut butter and jelly partner what torment means. Does torment mean like difficulty? So, in your own words. Nearly every crop caused pain. Like what? Go to the text and find me an example. The author includes an example of the pain and the torment. In your text. One, raise your hand, please. Candy. Grapevines. What did grapevines do? It has chemicals that made his eye sting and his nose bleed. Ooh, very good. What parts of his body were affected by doing his work? We just talked about all of that. Write it down in your dry erase. Don't forget to use the text, please. Okay, Joshua, what was hurting? His thumb, eye, and his finger, like that. You are correct, all right.
So in that video, we see several different questioning strategies that the teacher used. Should they all be used in the same lesson? No, but this is just an example to show how you can, or how teachers can use these questioning strategies, different questioning strategies, to really deepen students' understanding of what they're reading and what they're discussing. So let's think about the questions, the activities that the teacher was using. Would those increase the students' knowledge about what they're learning about? Yeah, probably. Could some of them be a distractor to the learning happening, depending on the particulars of one particular classroom or what's happening in this lesson? Absolutely. So it's really important to have your little tool bag of the different, questioning activities and strategies that teachers will use. It's really important for them to have those tools, but it's also just as important for them to know when is the best time to use each of those. And the only way that they can really truly get to that level of comfortability is to practice using them. So give the students the time. They're going to have to figure it out, of course, with guidance and support from the teacher. You can't expect the students to be perfect with it the very first time. So they might need some practice and some training. But finding those spots where the right tool is going to enhance the learning that's happening within those high quality instructional materials. So let's look at starting the video again. Let's look at our third descriptor. Teacher consistently highlights key concepts and ideas and uses them as the basis to connect other powerful ideas. So we've looked at the look fors and the questions of that you can ask, but let's look at some examples of how this descriptor can come to life in teacher collaboration and in the classroom. So let's look at this overview document. Let's look at this. We're seeing the for 6th grade. We'll start out here. Let me make this a little bigger. You see some of our 6th grade units here. We see the central question and the culminating task. Here's the other 6th grade unit. 7th grade. And 8th grade. And looking at this image here with the 4 on it, and you see all these different texts that students are reading there. How important is building background knowledge for our students? How important is that when we're approaching new learning? You, Paula, absolutely. It is tremendously important. Lauren, yes, it is essential. We really need to ensure that our students have that background knowledge. Exactly, Sarah. They need that so they're able to understand. Imagine a student who has grown up in South Louisiana, and before last month, I believe it was, yeah, when the snow happened, did they might not have ever had any sort of experience with snow or the cold weather, like we had those teen temperatures. They might not understand. And we just had a few days of not being able to get on the roads, it being a little dangerous of a situation. But if students are reading something or they're learning about something, it's important for them to have that knowledge. Same thing, consider a student who is not from the Gulf Coast and they move here and they're in 4th grade and they're going to be doing the hurricanes unit. If they haven't ever had the experience that our students here in Louisiana have had when it comes to hurricanes, they might be at a disadvantage whenever it comes to really showing their learning in that unit. So it's important that we help our teachers really bring this out in their lessons. I understand what the essential background knowledge is. Where is that being built in the unit? Do they need to utilize a let's set the context video to help them in building that knowledge a little more? Because it definitely is essential for our students to have that knowledge. All right, so I know that this was just a brief little session that we had today, but I hope that you're able to really use these tools and examples that I've shared with you to help clarify or reinforce what to look for during your ELA observations. It's important to have an understanding of your curriculum. We mentioned this in the first session of this series. The most powerful thing that a leader can do with their teachers is engage in that unit unpacking process, that unit planning process, and see exactly what the learning is that's happening in that unit and what the expectations are, what are the goals, what is their culminating task, what are they working towards, what are the things that students should know and be able to do. Engaging in that process as a leader is going to really give you an advantage when it comes to supporting your teachers as they're doing that. It'll help you as you go into their classrooms and you see what's happening in the classroom and how that can be best supported. It's just such a powerful thing that you can do. And these tools that I've shared with you today, I hope that you are able to utilize those as you're going in and doing those observations and supporting your teachers. Part 3 of this. So we did the unit unpacking in our first session. This second session, we've talked about observation, how to a tool that you can use as you go in to observe your teachers, and how you can use that to kind of drive some questioning and deepening of student or teacher understanding as they're teaching their students. And then part 3 of the series, we're going to focus on data analysis for leaders. That's going to be March 10th. I'm going to put the link to that registration below, or put it in the chat, so that way you can join us for that session. Sarah, thank you so much for your feedback. So this session is recorded and it'll be posted. It'll take about 10 days or so to get it posted to the K-12 ELA planning page. Under professional learning, we'll get that recording posted for you. And in the interim, if you weren't able to grab a link for one of the tools that I shared, or you want to utilize one of the videos that are in the session with your teachers or within your ILT as you're planning, when you're talking about, supporting your teachers and kind of some things to look for, just please email us at elaguidebooks@la.gov with any questions. And we'll reach out to you. It goes directly to my inbox and my team's inboxes. And we try to respond to all of those within 24 to 48 business hours. So just, reach out if you have any questions. Sarah had a question in the chat. Are those the types of videos that y'all are adding to Canopy? So yes, we are building our resources, our bank of exemplary practices and such in Canopy. We recently got a camera. We're excited to start recording, and we will be adding those, kind of building that bank up to have some examples within, available at your fingertips that you can use anytime. Stop sharing.